Why servant leadership? I'm so passionate, and I'm really, too much interested in this because I've been part of organizations which supported servant leadership. I've also been part of organizations which was completely against it. And I've also been part of organizations which looked at it as a funny thing, right? What, you want to be a servant for other people, right? So with that experience, I thought most of the times people think that servant leadership is something very soft and funny. It just goes on, right? And that's also I have seen with people. But I have learned that it is the most difficult thing that you can do in your career. If somebody is looking for a very rewarding, challenging career, I'm not talking about leadership. Servant leadership is one of them, right? That's what I have learned. I have tried both, a different style of servant leadership or even other styles of servant leadership. What I have felt is servant leadership is the only leadership that is very sustainable on a longer run, right? I can be a different style of leader. I don't think that is sustainable. Why servant leadership is very sustainable, we will see through that, right? But in today's world, not many people recognize the fact of servant leadership and its capacities, but it's slightly growing, but especially in the IT industry, there is a huge gap, right? That's where I thought that, this technical writing community, where we take back a lot of experiences out of this conference, people can go back and relate. When their leaders do something, they will be able to think through that whether it is a servant leadership style. If it is not, you can contribute. You can tell it in a positive way that, hey, what you're doing is not an appropriate style of leadership. Come back to us. Take care of us. You can have that positive conversation with your leader. A leader might be a good leader, but might not be a servant leader. So those are some of the qualities that I'm going to highlight here. So people in this crowd, if you're so passionate about your position, your culture, your backgrounds, your titles, and what you take home, if you're so passionate about that, if you're trying to be a leader who is wishing for a title, this is not for you, right? If somebody is looking for a rewarding career, a challenging career, if you're going to think that I need something challenging for me, on a daily basis, I need to think that what am I going to do for my people today? This is for those people, right? So I just want to go through the background. The concept of servant leadership, it goes back all the way up to so many centuries, right? Even before BC, I would say, if you say AD and BC, it started all the way in BC centuries, right? There was Lao Tzu, who was a Chinese sage. He says that the greatest leader forgets himself and attends to the development of others. And he has written a book where he says the servant leader, he is part of a group. You imagine your own team now. A servant leader is part of a group and they do a lot of activities. When they see the success, you will forget that leader was there as part of the group. If you are able to forget, if you feel that we did it ourselves, this guy was not there in this group, he is a servant leader. When you complete something, you feel that, no, what did I do? I didn't do anything. I don't feel that I have done anything here. That guy, he kind of overshadowed the whole thing, right? Like somebody says, he has taken away the limelight. If you have a leader and you do a lot of stuff, at the end of the day, when you see the benefit of it, you feel that this guy was not there, but he has put in whatever he could. Right? But if you feel like this guy was never present in this, actually he is a servant leader. He is not looking for fame. He is not looking for limelight. He is not looking for rewards. He is not looking for his growth, his money, right? He is not looking for his next steps. He is always thinking about what I can do for my people, my other leaders. So you might be wondering why we are taking this session for all the people who are not into leadership. It's a very boring topic, right? Servant leadership is a very boring. Who all think that it's a boring topic? It's so nice. I'm so happy, right? Only 3, 4. I thought the entire room would raise their hands, right? See, it's why I'm saying is everyone in this room is capable and eligible to be a leader. Do you believe? Do you accept that? Do you agree that? Every person in this room can be a great leader. When you talk about the word leader, the word influence plays a big role. How many of you think that you are a great influencer? How many of you think that you are a great influencer? I will give you one more opportunity. How many of you think that you are a great influencer? Trust me, guys, people who didn't raise your hands, you're absolutely wrong. I'm so sorry to be sound very rough here, right? People who didn't raise your hands, you're absolutely wrong. Every person in this room is a strong influencer in one or the other way. Do you agree to that? Every person in this room is a strong influencer in one or the other way. Just think of the moment a child is born. What happens? Just think of a moment a child is born. What happens? What is the first thing a child does? It's a form of influencing. We all have done that. Don't you think so? We all have done that. Any child who didn't cry? Okay. So every child that is born, the first thing it does is crying. Okay, by the way, a child is born with only 2 fears. Can anybody guess? Every human being, a child is born. I think even in other creatures. I don't know. I've not done that research. It might be true for even other creatures, but I know of human being. Every child is born with only 2 fears. Can anybody guess? Sorry? Okay. Sorry? Hunger, okay. Light, okay, that's very good judgment. Sorry? Survival, okay. Okay, so the research industry, especially medicine, people who have done very extensive research, they say every child that is born on the surface of the earth is afraid of 2 fears. One is the fear of falling. One is a fear of falling down. The child, when it is born, by instinct, naturally it has a fear of falling. The second is a fear of sound. A fear of sound. That's why every doctor in every hospital, the best doctor would say a child is born, it should cry. If it doesn't cry, there's something wrong because it is not having the fear of sound. It's not able to hear, right? Every child is born with only 2 fears. But just think of yourself. How many type of fears we have? How many types of fears we have? When did we get all these fears? We acquired all these fears. We were not born with this, right? Coming back to the point of influence, anybody who can influence can be a great leader. Anybody can influence in one or the other way can be a great leader, right? See, when we wanted things, we influenced our parents. Don't you think so? Right? I wanted a bike, I influenced my dad. I wanted a nice good shirt for a speech, I influenced my mom. Right? I put it in such a way that she will be able to do that for me. It's not only you directly influence, you also influence your mother to influence your dad in an indirect way, right? We also do that so many times. Who can deny that you are not an influencer? If you are an influencer, you are a leader. That's why I'm saying this session is relevant to each one of you. If you can influence, you can be a great leader. And I am sure everybody is a great influencer in one or the other way. Coming back to the servant leadership, Chanakya, everybody knows, it's an ancient Indian origin. He wrote in a book, Arthashastra, he says, a leader shall consider as good as what pleases him. What pleases his subjects. What are subjects here? Sorry? People, followers. Subjects are nothing but followers. It is not that what pleases me. It is about what pleases others. And for me, personally, in the entire century before BC and AD, if one human being, a perfect human being who was a servant leader, it was the father of Christian religion, Jesus Christ. How many know Jesus Christ here? How many know the history of Jesus Christ as a human being? As a human being. Okay, for Christians, Jesus was considered to be the father of God. He's God. He's son of God. He came down from the heaven for the salvation for the people of whatever, right? And it says that in history it is said that he is the one of the perfect human being lived on the surface of the earth. Perfect human being, though he was a god. So I'm taking the aspect of a human being, right? And he had in real time, in the history, he had, in Christianity it is called apostles or disciples. If the real term is disciples, he had 12 disciples who were very close to him. And this man, it is believed that he followed the true spirit of servant leadership AD 1, right? When he was right from the day born. He was alive only for 33 years, right? He was alive for only 33 years. Nobody knows from his age of 12 to 30 what he did, where he was. There is a belief that he traveled all over the world. He started preaching. He came to India. He was born in the city of Nazareth, right? In those days, Palestine geography. So there is no history of what happened in his life between 12 and 30, right? So 12, he has a great childhood with his father. His father is a carpenter. His mother is a housewife. And she was a blessed person. So God, who has come down to earth as a man, 12 years great childhood, and 12 to 30 we don't know. And he has a great team of 12 people, disciples, and he is setting these people up to take over his charism, to take over his doctrines to the rest of the world, right? So he is basically training these guys. And anybody knows this? There is a famous supper in the history of the entire world called Last Supper. So this supper was done by Jesus Christ. He is the God, and as a human being, he's coming around as a master, right, for the disciples, 12 disciples. From 30 to 33, he goes around to the cities. He's doing healing, he's doing preaching, he's helping people, he's giving food. He takes from the rich and shares with the poor, all good things, right? And he's already considered as one of the greatest masters by these 12 disciples. And this supper is called Last Supper, right? This ceremony is called Jesus washing the disciples' feet. This ceremony is called Jesus washing the disciples' feet. So this is called the Last Supper because this is the supper Jesus had on the night before his death. So you know Jesus was crucified on a cross, right? So the night before his death, he knows that he's going to be crucified tomorrow. He knows because he was God, right? He was the great master. He knew that he's going to be crucified the next day. And so he is calling for a very secret meeting, right? All his 12 disciples. He is taking them to the upper room in an isolated place in the city of Palestine, right? And he wants to serve supper for all his disciples. When they were about to start the supper, he understood that the actual servant who was supposed to be there to serve the people, right, was absent that night. Okay? In the city of Palestine, they have arranged for a secret meeting. They are at the isolated place in the Palestine city, and they don't have the servant. They didn't have Ola, of course. They didn't have Uber. They couldn't arrange for another servant to serve them. And this man decides. He makes them sit on the table. He takes the center seat. It's upper room, and they have to start this supper, famous supper, Last Supper before his death. And in those days in Palestine, there was a culture. Because the city was full of rocks and sand, and there was no wetland. It was more of dry land. People go for hard work. They walk long distance. By culture, they were supposed to wash their feet before they eat their supper, especially, right? And Jesus understood that the person who was supposed to serve the entire group was absent. Now, he also recognized that these 12 people, they know that this Jesus is going for his crucifixion tomorrow, right? It's decided. He knows. He has already foreseen. These 12 people are fighting between each other. Who is next? Who is going to be the next master? Who is the greatest in the room? Who is the most important person in the room? He's able to overhear that. These 12 people are fighting. And Jesus realized that this servant is not there. So who will do the washing of the feet now? What would you do? What would I do? Who will do the ceremony of washing the feet? The dedicated servant is not there. The least one. How would you select? You ask for a volunteer to wash someone's feet? Do you think somebody will volunteer? So Jesus took this basin with water and he just comes around, stands in front of him, the greatest master they have met in life, and 12 disciples are looking at him. There are guys who are sitting like this. There are guys who are sitting like this and then just turning around and somebody looking back. And what do you think Jesus would have done? What do you think the disciples would have thought? Yeah, what if you were there, what would you think? The first thing, if I was there, I would have thought, is he going to give it to me? Right? He is standing there in front of the basin with water. Right? He has the cloth ready to hand over to somebody. If I was there, I would have thought, is he going to give it to me? Right? That's what they thought. And then he started going around, grabbing each one's feet, and he started washing their feet, the greatest master. Now, when he started washing your feet, what would you feel? Sorry? Great, yes. Anybody else? If I was there, I would feel humiliated. I would feel embarrassed. The first thing that comes to my mind is unworthy. I would feel unworthy, right? If I was there. The first thing I would do, I missed the opportunity to take the initiative to do the dirty job. That's what a servant leader does. And now, he goes to one of the disciples, this guy is called Peter. He's a naughty guy in the group, okay? And so when he grabs Peter's leg, he says, Master, you can't do that. You can't wash my feet. And you know what he said? If I don't wash your feet, you have no part in me. He says that if you don't allow me to serve you, you are not part of me. Because I have a mission. I'm a servant leader. You have to allow me to serve. Do you think all the 12 disciples were worthy of his service? Do you think so? Any guess? There were so many hands who said they knew Jesus, right? Any guess? Do you think all 12 people were worthy of his service? No. There was a guy called Judas. And when he was going to wash his leg, Jesus knows that this is the guy who is going to betray me tomorrow. Because of him, I will be crucified. Because Judas was already funded by the Pharisees and the Jews and the Sadducees who were against Jesus. This guy who has been already funded by them, and the mode was the next day evening when the crowd is there, this guy is supposed to go and kiss Jesus to identify Jesus. When he's washing his hand or leg, feet, Jesus knows I'm washing the feet of Judas. He is going to kiss me in tomorrow's crowd celebration. And because of him, I'm going to be crucified. And that will be the end of my life, right? I attain death. You know, that is the situation you can really test the commitment of a true servant leadership. And it is believed that he is the only person who was a God, also behaved as a master, started this servant leadership culture, right? Okay. Now, in the modern life, in the modern era, Greenleaf is considered as the father of the servant leadership. He is considered as the person who coined this term, servant leadership. He was part of 38 years like AT&T, and he was more of a training and development person. And he also started a firm called Greenleaf, and he was a CEO and a founder. And he coined this term in 1970s, right? And he has numerous books that he has written on servant leadership. And post Greenleaf, these are the people like Larry Spears, James Artrey, and James Hunter. These were his followers, right? These were his followers who were like preaching this both at the corporate level as at the personal level, right? So I'm not going to read all of this. You can see these key terms: servant leadership, service of another, right? Dead to the another, in the service of another, work for another. Everything it's for someone else, not for you, right? The definition of service, assistance, benefit, for whom? Not for you, for someone else, right? And the definitions of leader, a person, a thing that leads. It might be in your family, it might be in your society, it might be in your church. It might be in your party, it might be in your company, it might be in your employee group, right? Anybody who leads, anybody who helps, anybody who guides, anybody who inspires, right? Anybody who sets patterns of good things, anybody who sets patterns of good practices, he's a leader. Maybe you have not recognized him as a leader, but naturally he's acting as a leader. Some of the characteristics, if you do what naturally comes to you, this might sound as a paradox. We are not used to this concept, so I will just explain this. If you do what comes to you naturally, I don't think you are a great leader. Do you know why? I mean, I can ask you a couple of questions here, right? If you do what comes naturally, you will be a very poor leader. What are we naturally? As human being, right? What are we naturally? Selfish. Awesome. Selfish. We are self-centered. First thing, we are very simple, right? As a human being, naturally we are very simple. We are self-centered. We are selfish. Would you like to work for a leader who is self-centered, selfish? Would you like to work for a leader? No. So what comes naturally cannot be a servant leadership. You have to learn. You have to learn to be a servant leadership. I think you can try to be a leader with all the skills and practices that you have naturally. But you can't be a servant leader. To be a servant leader, you have to learn. So just because you are in a leadership, do you think you are a servant leader? No. Just because you are in a leadership, you are not a leader itself, right? But to transform as a servant leadership, it takes a lot. So the most annoying thing in a servant leadership, most of the leadership style is a top-down approach, right? I am the boss. I take all the decisions, right? I finish my stuff and then I will let you know, right? That's the top-down approach. For example, if you take the company, the organization, then you say management, and then you say people in the hierarchy. It starts the other way. People first, right? People first. In the hierarchy triangle, people first. And then comes the management, the leadership, all CEOs, your VPs, the SVPs. And then comes the organization. That is the approach of the servant leadership. In leadership, the top-down approach never succeeds. It fails. It fails, not just fails, it fails brutally. Right? This is where the picture of micromanagement, what I want to do, what do I get, like Prahlad was saying in the morning, what do I get, what do you get, what do we get, right? That approach is, it's a top-down approach. A leader, I always look, what am I going to get? So these are some of the top qualities of servant leadership. One is listen. We have one mouth but 2 ears, right? God had a reason. Talk less, listen more. Right? He didn't give it the other way. Many leaders tend to forget this concept. You spend 1 hour one-on-one with your employee. If your employee has to take 45 to 55 minutes to talk for the person's whatever, please allow it to happen. Maybe if you have something to talk and if you are not able to do that in your one-on-one, just do that quickly in a coffee break. But you have given the time for your employee. Listen. If you don't listen, you will fail. Allow your employees to express, right? And then empathizing. I always do this personally. I like this a lot. Look at people, separate people and work, right? Don't mix people and work. Look at people first and then look at the work. People's background, people's history, right? What do they do in the morning, right? What are they occupied with? Maybe why do they come late? Why do they go a little early? Look at people first. The moment Walmart CEO, he says that, you take care of your people, they will take care of your customers. The organization will take care of itself. Right? It's a concept of servant leadership. Empathy, which is something very close to my heart, and accountability. Accountability, right? Sometimes this is misunderstood in servant leadership. So the leaders have to make it very clear what is accountability between employees. And there is honor of 7 habits. Honor of 7 habits. Tell the truth always, even if it is hurting. Tell the truth. Never miss to tell the truth. Treat others with dignity, self-respect. The person will respect others if you have self-respect, right? And then keep your word and your commitments. You say something, you should do it. And you can just go through those habits. And the 7 characteristics. So there are 3 paradigms. One is a leader should have a few 7 characters. 7 leaders should have a few leader characters. When these 2 aspects put together, it forms a few character set, right? So in a servant leadership, listening, empathy, healing, this is of a servant quality, right? Whatever it is, you are listening to them. You are not bypassing, you are not skipping, you are listening. You are trying to empathize with him. That is the servant part. The leader part, awareness. As a great leader should be aware of what is happening. You should persuade, right? You should see, you should be able to foresee things. You should have a good vision of what is going to happen. That is the actual leader skill. When these put together, you get this servant leader common qualities. Stewardship, right? Your commitment to the growth of people, not about the growth of yourself. You always think about the others, not you. So what it is not, many times servant leaders are misunderstood in any group, even in a mature group, even in a, the kind of kids group, or even at a top level. Servant leadership is always misunderstood. It is not that you let everyone to set your own agenda, right? A servant leader doesn't mean that people will tell me what to do. Right? Because we are asking a servant leadership to be very humble, meek, right? Seek for opinion, listen to others, be nice to. When you be all that, people will start dictating, right? But that's not servant leadership. It's not that what people tell you to do. You still have your opinion. You do all the dirty work. No. You do all the dirty work because you are a servant leader, because Jesus did, or because someone else did. No. It's not that because you do all the dirty work, you are a servant leader. No. It's not that you don't lead strong. You have to still lead strong. You have to tell people, hey, no, that's not how it is. When the moment you are not able to do, you lose you have the servant part, but you lose the leader part, right? So don't get into that trap. Yeah, it's not that you have to be available 24/7. Some servant leaders are specifically, expected to do this. So there are some paradoxes in our real life. On a daily basis, we see this. As a servant leader, you should be great enough to be without pride, right? You should be great. That doesn't mean that you are going to get into a trap of pride, being pride. And you should be planned enough to spontaneous. You should be compassionate, right? To be very disciplined. These are the paradoxes as a servant leader you should have. Examples of balance, right? See, when you do something, the team gets the credit. When something good happens, the team gets the credit. When something goes wrong, who gets the credit? There's no credit. Something goes wrong, I take the blame. The leader takes the blame. Like what happened in the recent ISRO satellite launch, right? It was all happening. Everybody was in front. Everybody was celebrating. There were street celebrations happening. The team members are all in front. Hey, this is going to happen. We are going to celebrate the success, and it failed. Who was in front of the press? Not even a single team member. Who was in front? The leader. He said that, sorry, we couldn't do it. And everybody today, everybody in India knows who failed that mission. Not by individual team members. The leader failed the mission. But did he fail the mission? No. That's where he succeeded. From my personal experience, I would say that's where he proved that he's a great leader. So these are some of the other paradoxes. You can go through these when you have access to the slides. And some of the examples, these are some of the top 10 companies in the world who follow servant leadership. And they are there as top companies for the reason, right? These leaders were leading from the front, and they were able to bring up these companies to a greater success. And these are some of the individuals. We covered these, and these are some of the great servant leader examples in the world. And these are some corporate examples, except Nelson Mandela. So the Sam Walton, he's the corporate CEO, and he's the one who said that you take care of your employees, they will take care of your customers, and the company will take care of itself, right? You don't have to do anything. And Herb Taylor, he was one of the greatest CEO. On one of the Thanksgiving Day, he was loading stuff in the truck for his employees. That is what a great servant leader, right? It's not that I stand behind and then say, hey guys, why don't you load this on the truck? right? That might be a part of a leadership curriculum, but not as part of a servant leadership curriculum. These are some of the traditional leaders. I don't know if you're able to follow the font, but yeah, some of the traditional leaders were collaborative leaders. There's one important slide that I want to, this is an average leader's day, right? A great leaders, what they do at 7, when do they get up, when do they wake up from their bed, how many hours they spend on emails, how many hours they spend for people, how many hours they spend for, learning, reading. These are habits. And they have, the important one is the average leader also, he has 12 interruptions in a day. 12 interruptions, at least 12 interruptions. He can evaluate, do a self-evaluation that he's a great leader. He has to be at least 6 years in a company. I know it takes a lot, right? It's not that easy. Okay, a bossless leader, he takes credit, leader gives credit. Okay, there are a couple of slides, I'll quickly run through them. You can still have a glance at it. Generates enthusiasm, uses people, he develops people. Drives employees, he coaches them, right? He commands, this guy asks, can you do this? Is it okay if we do this? So even if you're a leader, or if you're not a leader, if you're a servant leader, if you're the other style of leader, these are some of the things that requires no talent. We all can do this, right? We don't need a degree, or we don't need a diploma or a certification to do all this. And a great leader, please remember, the moment you do all of this, you are in the zone. You are part of that group. An average leader and a great leader, come to work just for the paycheck, no discipline, medical reasons, poor health habits, poor teammates, dragged to be around, never contribute, motivated out of fear, no plans, a good leader. And I really want to ask you, what leader are you? Just do this exercise, right? Maybe write it in a paper, put some ticks on each item, right? And evaluate yourself, what kind of leader you are going to be, or what kind of leader you are today, right? And final thoughts, a leader is best. This is what I said when Lao Tzu example, I said, the leader is best when people barely know he exists, right? You don't know he's there, he's around. When his work is done, his aim is fulfilled, the team members will say, where was he? We did it ourselves, right? That's the true servant leader. And my final thoughts, no one has learned the meaning of life, right? I have never learned the meaning of life until I surrender my ego to the service of others. I surrender my ego to the service of others. And our Dalai Lama, the great person to live on the earth, don't treat people as bad as they are. Treat them as good as you are, right? Why do you want to find mistakes, right? You are good, so treat them good. Be nice to everyone. Thank you so much. Any questions? Thank you.
Any questions? We'll quickly take 2 questions.
I know it's very straightforward, so.
No? So I request.
Yeah, there's a question there. Yeah, thank you. We'll finish it fast. I know I'm standing between you and your lunch, right? I didn't choose to do that, so sorry.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I just have one question, that while following the principle of service leadership, is it possible by the team to be for the team to perceive you as a weak leader? Because because as you said, one of the slides you showed that you're not commanding, but you're asking. It's a good quality, of course, but is it possible that some of the team members can take an advantage of it, and how to deal with that?
Yeah, it does happen. What's your name?
Snehal.
Snehal. So thank you so much for the question. It does happen in most of, I would say, 90% of workplaces. Most of the times when you try to be nice, humble, meek, and seeking for opinions, not commanding and asking and telling things and coordinating, organizing, the whole servant leadership characteristics, yes, you are sometimes perceived as a very weak leader, because they are not able to see through the things, and they are not able to understand the mechanism that you are following, right? You're still doing the things, but it's not that they want to do it intentionally, right? They are not able to see through the mechanism that you're following, right? So the best thing to do for the leader there, I had a chart where what is not servant leadership, right? You are not a doormat. You are not a doormat for them every day to stamp and then just cross the office door, right? Please understand that. You are not a doormat. Take your stand. But there is a way, even in your stand, there is humility, right? It's not that I have to go and stand every day in front of an employee and say that, hey, can you do this? No. Right? There is posture. There is meek way of asking things. It's not commanding. So the moment you follow what is not servant leadership, I think you'll be a very successful leader. Right? It may not happen over a short time, and I strongly believe that time is the best healer for in any situation. You may have a conflict with somebody, you may have a fight with somebody. Don't rush into proving things, right? Just take your time, and because time and your attitude is the best healer towards that person. The moment you feel that somebody is treating you as a doormat, see, I will tell you, I'm trying myself to be a servant leadership from the very personal point of view for the last 15 years. I have seen people like Judas that we saw in that example, right? I know that this person is going to betray me tomorrow maybe in a triangle meeting, right? Where my boss or somebody would be there. Does it matter to me? Do you think it matters to me? You know the statement I said in the beginning of my introduction. I'm trying my best to be a servant leader for the last 15 years. And today I'm in one of the top most best companies. And I have another 20 to 25 years left in me. And I will try my best to be, right? I will try my best to be a servant leader. If not in ServiceNow, it would be another one of the top most companies in the world. Just go by that. You're doing your stuff. Let people understand what you're doing. If they don't understand, if there are Judas in your group, just let them be as they are. But at the end of the day, I also want to grow and you also want to grow, right? But as a servant leadership, the focus is not my ambitions, my growth, my future plans. The focus is only on my team, my members, right? Forgive. Take it on another day. Keep it aside. We'll talk it later, right? There will be hard feelings, but don't jump into conclusions. Take your time. Time is the best healer, and you will be perceived as a great leader.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Suresh, for such an insightful session. I request Nidhi to come and give over the mementos.